Hello, this is Ruslan Belov. We continue to analyze the situation on the front lines. Let's open the map. So friends, today there are again many sections of the front where advances are being recorded and there is plenty to discuss. But I want to start with the Azov fighters, their sector, specifically the Lyman direction. You see, we're used to hearing that the Azov fighters are an elite force, that they're the toughest units, that they stand firm to the death, that they don't let the enemy pass. Remember how even Arestovich, the Ukrainian propagandist, used to say that the only troops capable of stopping Russian forces were the Azov fighters. Just look at Bilohorivka. Well, I'd like to ask, what's the situation there now? Seems like it's under our army's control. But look, our guys have completely shattered this myth in just the past week and a half to 2 weeks. I'm talking about the myth that the Azov fighters are some kind of elite force. Just look at this sector of the front, where the supposedly mighty Azov fighters were supposed to cement their positions and prevent our advance. Yet all they're doing is running away, abandoning positions where even the Terror Defense, Ukrainian Territorial Defense Forces, might have put up some resistance. Because Azov is no elite unit. Yes, they are indeed better equipped than other Ukrainian Armed Forces units. But gear won't help you when you're a coward at heart. Take the village of Novoye, for example, a fairly large settlement. And what do we see? Our forces entered the day before yesterday, and already most of the village is under our control. Right now, fighting is ongoing in the western part of Novoye. And although the map here isn't fully updated yet, clashes are already unfolding on these streets. Essentially, the Azov fighters now control only 3 streets on the western outskirts. The rest have already retreated to the next village, Lypov. But as you can see, it's a tiny village, and if they couldn't hold Novoye, they certainly won't be able to dig in and defend here. So we can soon expect another Azov retreat. In fact, I want to show you the scale of the Azov defeat on the Lyman front. Let's switch to another map. Look, the red dotted line marks the line of contact just a week ago, and now it runs like this. That means we've pushed the Azov fighters back 5 kilometers, even slightly more in depth, and nearly 6 kilometers in width, all in just a week. These are the so-called elite units of the AFU, and yet they're running like hell. I even posted footage of dead Azov fighters in my Telegram channel, so you can check the link in the description if you want to see. I won't show that here, of course. What else can I say? Well, on the left bank, they're holding their defenses relatively well, meaning there's no rout like on the right bank. But they're still losing ground there, just not as dramatically. For example, east of Toretsk, and the main obstacle here is Toretsk itself. I think there will be fierce battles for it, because losing Toretsk would threaten not just Lyman, but also the Siversk direction. So we shouldn't expect a retreat here. No one will allow them to flee. Instead, they'll likely reinforce it with reserves. Now let's move from the Azov sector to other parts of the front. A few words about Kursk Oblast. Progress continues near the village of Gornal. Even Ukrainian maps, as you can see, have stopped resisting and now acknowledge our control, though they still downplay it a bit. They claim we only control the Gornal monastery, but that's not entirely true. Yes, we do control it, but yesterday we also managed to enter the village itself and advance into its residential areas. So it's just a matter of time before we fully secure it. Let's wish success to our fighters who are liberating our land. They're doing sacred work. Now on to other key sectors where the AFU is in trouble. And their biggest problem right now is near Toretsk, on all flanks. North of the city, we've taken control of the Novotoretskaya mine. Here it is. Our forces are advancing toward Nelipivka, which, as you may recall, our reconnaissance groups had already reached in a probing attack. I told you about this before. To the west, fighting continues for the settlement of Suka, and the Ministry of Defense officially announced yesterday the capture of Valentinivka. By the way, we've already seen videos from there with our flag. But the Ukrainian Armed Forces are still clinging to the northern part of Suka. They don't want to give it up easily because they have nothing to fall back to beyond it. If, for example, they're pushed out of the northern outskirts of Suka, they'll have to retreat a full 7 kilometers. That's why they're fighting so stubbornly. But the outcome will still be the same, and I think you know exactly what it will be. Meanwhile, Even before the fighting in Suka is over, some of our units have already begun advancing along the road toward Romanivka. The current progress is roughly 600 meters. As for Mirol-Lubivka, I told you about it yesterday. No updates yet. The assault was successful, and we managed to gain a foothold in the village. But as you can see on the map, it's a large settlement, so we shouldn't expect quick results here. Further along the front, near Dnipro Oblast, there's been some minor progress. We've managed to straighten the front line and advance toward Kotlyarivka on a broad front. Right now, our positions are about 900 meters from the eastern outskirts of the village. Reconnaissance and sabotage groups have already entered, but they couldn't hold their ground. Why? Because the VSU is pumping in reserves almost non-stop. Their orders are to prevent the Russian army from entering Dnipro Oblast at all costs. Not so much for military reasons, but political ones. Because if our army enters a new region, it would be a major political blow for Kiev. Naturally, our army has the exact opposite objective, to enter Dnipro Oblast. So fierce fighting is ongoing here, just like near Bohatyr, where our forces reached the southern outskirts yesterday. I don't have any updates yet on whether we've managed to enter and secure the village, but by the time you're watching this, it might already be under our control. Now, regarding Dniprovsk, a couple of days ago, Ukrainian telegram channels spread a fake claim that the VSU had pushed us out of the village. But as you can see, we had to put up new flags just to prove, once again, no, the village is under our full control. Just like I told you when this fake news was being spread. It's complete nonsense. Nobody pushed us out. Yes, they tried to enter the village, but they were simply destroyed before reaching Dniprovsk. Sumy direction. Here, Russian forces are working quickly to establish full control over Kursk Oblast. I think there's a political aspect to this. It's important to demonstrate that the Russian armed forces have completely cleared the entire Kursk region, writes military analyst Yuri Podolyaka. The same applies to Krasnoyaruski district in Belgorod Oblast, and things are moving in that direction. Overall, Russian forces have taken the Svyato-Nikolsky monastery, though they don't fully control it yet. There's still a small VSU presence there, but I think the situation will be resolved in the coming days. The biggest problem here is Kiev's drone operators, who are launching intense attacks, making operations much more difficult. The Russian army has approached the outskirts of Hornal and is trying to enter the village. For now, this remains the VSU's main stronghold. Near Oleshnya, Russian forces have also made tactical gains. In Demidovka and Popivka, residential areas have been fully cleared, though some VSU remnants are still hiding in forest belts, especially on the southern side. Kiev is clinging to these positions purely for political reasons. Meanwhile, the Russian army continues advancing in Sumy Oblast. Attacks are moving toward Yunakivka, and our forces have reached the outskirts of Vodolahi, come very close to Belovody, and are still fighting in Lochnia. In essence, there's pressure from north to south. The VSU fears a Russian breakthrough towards Sumy, the regional capital, because even a drone blockade of Sumy would be a huge problem for Kiev, not just in terms of image, but financially and, most importantly, logistically. Diplomatic developments. A ceasefire in Ukraine at this stage is unrealistic, stated Russia's UN envoy Vasily Nebenzia. He also said that any UN document supporting a potential ceasefire would depend on the terms of the truce. Lavrov and Rubio held a phone call. The US Secretary of State informed the Russian minister about his recent contacts with representatives from Ukraine, France, and several other European countries, as well as discussions with Victoria Nuland. These talks were part of ongoing US-Russia consultations, including Putin's recent meeting with Nuland in St. Petersburg. Rubio wrote that Trump's team arrived in Paris with one goal: to push for practical solutions to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. He also stated that the US will try for a few more weeks to push a peace deal, but if the sides refuse to compromise, the Americans will withdraw from the Ukrainian crisis. As usual, our insider sources were right, writes the Telegram channel Legitimny. We pointed out that Washington brought an ultimatum to Paris. The US explicitly told Europe that they would dump the Ukrainian crisis on them, which is an unbearable burden for the EU. The US is preparing to exit the game as they realize globalists are considering expanding the conflict. Final frontline update. That's all for today on the frontline situation. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel